how to stop trusting the wrong people as a sixth sensory. Why do we trust the wrong people? It's because we have a low battery. When we're drained and we're working really hard, that's when we make really poor decisions in terms of who we allow into our life, in terms of personal friendships and personal intimate relationships. So how do we improve our judgment? First of all, you have to operate on a full battery. Often we make poor choices when our batteries are drained, and there are many different sources in our lives that we're not aware of that can be pulling our battery down. And that's like driving on a highway at a top speed with very little sleep. It's not a good thing, and you're likely to crash. So my tip number one to recharge the battery as a sixth sensory is that you need to make sure you're allowing positive social media and other media content into your life, and you're blocking the things that have a negative influence. If you're playing violent video games, or you're watching murder mysteries on TV, or you're listening to very violent music, I'm not saying you can never listen to those things or watch those things. It's possible they could be a creative influence that could allow you to come up with some ideas that are different and innovative. But having said that, if you're constantly exposing yourself to negative music, television, video games that encourage a lot of violence, or maybe they're encouraging selfishness, competition, things that aren't healthy for us, that's when we sort of start getting into a negative mindset, and it's best to let these kinds of things go. Even being jealous of somebody else's perfect life on social media also falls into this negative media content category, and so does watching the news nonstop. I'm not saying you can't be informed, but you really got to watch how much negative content you're allowing into your life, because it's going to pull down your battery, and it's going to count when you're making choices that are important for your life, and that's when you're going to make the wrong ones. So number one is you should watch your media content, and seriously consider going on a fast from your phone as well. Don't look at your phone all the time. Maybe leave it shut off for a few days and just enjoy nature. That's a great way to really up your battery, and so you're going to be in a positive mindset to pick better relationships that are a better fit for you. My tip number two, in order to improve your battery so that you're going to choose good relationships for you, is that you want to operate your work from a very clean and pristine space as much as possible. Of course, we're never going to have things perfect, but if you're living in chaos and mess everywhere, it's time to clean it up, because that's going to cause issues and frustration, and you're going to trip over things. And then again, when it comes time to choosing who's going to be a good fit for you in your life, you're going to feel disempowered. You're going to have a lower sense of self-esteem because you're living in a crappy place. And so living with too much chaos and disorder is a no-no. And if you have roommates that are creating a lot of the chaos and disorder, then clean out a small space that's just for you that has to stay clean. And that way you have a little quiet space where you can go meditate, or you can do your thing, but avoid all of the chaos that's in your home overall. My next third tip to improve your battery is to go outside and do activities that are fun. In fact, if you have a home environment that's very difficult for you to control, I highly recommend this one and spending most of your time outside of the home. There are so many places you can go. You can go out into nature, you can go to the library, you can go see a movie, and spending your time in positive places outside the home can really build up your battery. Especially if you're having coffee with a friend you haven't seen in a long time, or you're going to the gym, these are great places to recharge your battery and help you feel good about yourself. And it's a good hack if you're living in a chaotic home environment and you can't move yet for whatever reason. I highly recommend moving if you do get into a chaotic home environment. But if you can't just yet, because usually it takes time and that's a big deal, spend time outside the home, with the people that you really enjoy. And that will help you raise your battery and raise your vibration, so you're selecting friendships that are good for you. My fourth tip is that if people are bringing you constant negativity and they're never bringing you good news, they're always pulling you down, you need to have a limit on that. I'm not saying you can never be there for your friend, you can never offer support, because that's part of what friendship is about. But if people are constantly bringing you negative energy and they're not learning their life lesson, then maybe you need to avoid hanging out with them. Maybe it's time that you set some boundaries on that so they're not constantly bringing you down. Because if your female friend is bringing you down about all of her dating experiences, for example, then you're going to see the other gender as kind of like an enemy because you're constantly getting negative feedback from your friend, and that's not healthy, right? And so you want to start limiting your time with them so that you have a more positive outlook on whatever kinds of relationships you're hoping to develop, whether that's male or female. And then my next 5th tip to raise your vibration is to consider taking up a practice like yoga or meditation that will help calm your mind. That's a big one. And if you can self-discipline and practice having mindfulness in your day-to-day life, that's really going to raise your vibration. It's actually better than even positive input, although positive input is great and we should take advantage of all the positive music and positive TV programming that's out there, absolutely. But if you can have absolute quiet, that's why nature is so powerful too. Or even if you step into a church or a mosque or a temple and you feel that quiet, that vibration is one of the highest vibrations that you can feel that will really instantly recharge your battery as a 6th sensory. A lot of people are afraid of quiet, especially if they're more left-brained, but it's actually very nurturing if you know how to use it and you appreciate it. So don't run away from it. You don't have to constantly be in noise. You don't have to constantly live in chaos. Go to quiet places where you can be still, and those things will really boost your battery and will help you get into more positive relationships. And then my 6th tip to help you get into positive relationships and stop trusting the wrong people is that you need to take things slow. And that's why the previous tip of meditation is so helpful, because it will help you move a bit slowly. When you're getting to know new people, or even when you're dealing with friendships that you've had for a long time, you want to go slowly and make sure that the relationship that you're setting up is a positive one, and that the next interaction you're having with them is going to be a good one. Because if it's going to be negative and it's going to be Downersville, then what's the point? There are some friendships, by the way, where you hang out once and then you don't really see them for 3 years, and then you hang out again and it feels like you've never really had that 3-year gap. And so sometimes friendships can be like that, and you can take a step back and take a bit of distance if you need to, and then later your friendship can be all good again. And so don't be afraid to try that. That can be a really good strategy for having friendships if they're not going so well or people are in a negative space. Give them a bit of space and then try again later. And sometimes that actually works really well, and you can pick up your friendship where you left off. And then my 7th tip for learning how to build trust in the right people and not select the wrong people is to study a little bit about healthy relationships. Grab a relationship book that's current. The thing about relationships is that this area of life is constantly developing, and so if you do a little bit of reading and your own research with current books, you'll notice something that books from the 90s are very different on relationships versus books today. And so even if you did a deep dive on it 20 years ago, consider doing another dive on it again today, because you'll probably learn some things about relationships. And even some television programming can show you a lot about relationships too. Certain reality TV shows that are more positive and uplifting sometimes can show you how people build happy, healthy relationships, but be cautious of the really negative ones out there too, because there are some pretty bad reality TV shows. But there are some cute ones where you can kind of see people building happier relationships, and you can learn from that when people do have relationships that work. And so that's my tips for you today to help you build your trust in the right people and not select the wrong people. I think that's a big piece, is really recharging your battery and getting yourself to a good place. Because what happens when your battery is full is that you yourself have good judgment. You can listen to me all you want, and I'll give my best advice and feedback to help guide you to navigate relationships. Having said that, the best guidance you can ever receive comes from your own guidance system or your own heart. because that's the most authentic voice, and nothing I say will convince you really more to follow guidance than your own heart. Your own heart will tell you which relationships are compelling to you, and it's when we shut our heart off that's when we pick the wrong people. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's your logic, and yes, logic is a very helpful tool and we should use that as well. But our true heart, not our greedy heart, because our greedy heart can mislead us. If we're greedy for a marriage or we're greedy for wealth, we can go wrong if we're following our greedy heart. But if you follow your absolute true heart, that's here to be a good human being and good for humanity, you've got a better shot at developing an authentic relationship with someone. And if you learn everything about relationships that there is to know, then people aren't going to be able to rip you off or deceive you that easily either.